Since their time as a dominant Great Plains tribe in the 19th century, the Cheyenne Nation has triumphed over a great deal of adversity. They have persevered through the process of relocating, fighting for land, and experiencing economic difficulties. By examining significant historical facts and experiences of contemporary life on reservations, we are able to gain an understanding of the resilience and pride of this fascinating tribe. As we mentioned before, despite obstacles such as being relocated against their will and having their culture suppressed, the Cheyenne people have managed to keep their cultural identity intact and continue to be steadfast in preserving their traditions. Having said that, we warmly welcome you to another exciting content on our channel, where we will uncover 6 unknown facts about the history and culture of the Cheyenne tribe. But before we dive right into our topic for today, kindly take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and push the notification bell on your screen. So then, let's take a look at some of these facts that you probably didn't know about the Cheyenne people in order to learn more about them. Much of what we know about the Cheyenne people dates back to the middle of the 1600s. In the region that is now Minnesota and North Dakota, the Cheyenne people started migrating from the Great Lakes region. Their homes were composed of logs that were packed with earth and grass, and they established settlements there. Many of the Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara people's cultural traits were absorbed by the Cheyenne people after they came into contact with them. During the time that the Lakota and Ojibwa nations were advancing toward them, the Cheyenne people started moving further northwest. The majority of the Cheyenne people had relocated to the states of Wyoming, Colorado, and South Dakota by the middle of the 1800s. Instead of living in earthen dwellings, they inhabited teepees, and their primary source of nutrition shifted from fish and produce that they farmed to bison, wild fruits, and wild vegetables. It is not entirely clear to anthropologists how the Cheyenne people managed to keep track of their origins. There are many who believe that both parents were taken into consideration, whereas some other people are of the opinion that the only way to determine whether or not a person was a member of the Cheyenne tribe was through their mother's lineage. Because they collaborated, the Cheyenne bands had a government that was distinct from that of other organizations. In Cheyenne culture, the central traditional political system is called the Council of 44. It was given this name because 44 chiefs sat on the council. The remaining 4 chiefs served as counselors to the other 40 chiefs, and each of the 10 bands had 4 chief delegates seated in their positions. This system exercised authority over societies that were accountable for the planning of military operations, the enforcement of laws and regulations, and the organization of special rituals. One of the ways that the Cheyenne people managed to preserve a significant portion of their culture was through the Sundance, which is a ceremonial practice that is still practiced today. Every summer, with the regeneration of the sacred arrows, the Cheyenne people would perform their Sundance. This event was a world renewal ceremony, during which prayers were said for the people's well-being and the expansion of their resources. Men decked with extravagant body paint committed to dance and abstain from food for 4 days. An instructor who had himself been through the ordeal 4 times was the one who instructed initiates on the proper ritual to perform. As soon as the participants gathered around, the ceremony of the Sundance started. There are typically a great number of offerings made to the Creator during the Sundance. This is because when you pray to ask for assistance, you are required to give something back in return. There is a story about Sitting Bull's vision that has been written in a few different ways, because when people tell stories, their memories of the event tend to be different. Anyway, Sitting Bull had already performed the Sundance, and his body was scarred by the rite. However, he offered 100 pieces of flesh from his arms this time. Even though blood was still gushing out of his body, Sitting Bull started dancing in front of the sun until noon the following day, almost a day and a half later. The Indians placed his corpse down, and he then went into his vision, where he saw the men on horses coming upside down. This was a sign of good fortune for the Native Americans, since it meant that many soldiers would be killed. According to the Northern Cheyenne tribe, Sitting Bull issued a warning to the people, saying, "The dead soldiers are a gift from God. Kill them, but do not take their guns or horses, for if you set your heart upon the goods of the white man, it will curse this nation." However, some people did not pay attention to what Sitting Bull had to say because they could not hear this warning. One of the primary reasons why the Cheyenne continue to perform their Sundance is because a guy by the name of W.P. Moncure saw that a significant number of the elderly were slowly passing away. He proposed that they be taken to the highlands to observe and record all of the different methods in which the Sundance is performed. This would ensure that the tradition would be preserved and continued in the future. The Sundance has been altered and shortened throughout its history. The Cheyenne do not dance or fast for as long as they used to. Only certain songs and dances are still performed. Also, counting coups is no longer practiced by this tribe because it has been forgotten for a very long time. The Native Americans successfully overthrew the Custer's Calgary during this conflict, known as the Battle of Little Bighorn. Meanwhile, the government of the United States of America made an effort to put an end to the Sundance in the late 1800s. Cheyenne ceremonies went underground and reappeared in the 20th century after a period of hiding. There were rumors of Army patrols during the Kiowa Sundance that took place in August of 1890, which caused the dance to be abandoned. Nevertheless, the first ghost dance was conducted in September of that year, and for several years, it served as a substitute for the Sundance event. In 1908, the Ponca Sundance was held for the final time. With the publication of the Circular Indian Religious Freedom and Indian Culture in 1934, the government's policy of suppressing Indian culture came to an end, and Sundances have continued to be held to this day. The teepee is a construction that is utilized by a large number of indigenous peoples belonging to the Northern Hemisphere, particularly those living in higher latitudes. It was particularly prevalent in Siberia, the northern regions of Scandinavia, and a significant portion of North America. Teepees are said to have been constructed by the Sami, Lapps, of Norway, Sweden, Finland, and Russia for thousands of years. This is because there was a readily available supply of domesticated reindeer hides, which made it possible for them to use animal skins as a form of shelter. To this day, Sami families continue to reside in them during the reindeer herding season or while they are on fishing or hunting expeditions. Naturally, in this day and age, there is a possibility that a Volvo SUV is parked next to the Sami teepee. The structural principles that underpin a teepee are straightforward, yet they result in a lightweight construction that is highly resistant to wind pressure in all directions. Furthermore, provided it is sufficiently insulated, a teepee can protect its occupants from the chilliest winter weather conditions. As a result of the use of poles and saplings for the main structure, rather than the heavy posts that were necessary for the construction of the earth lodge, the amount of time and energy that was required to cut down the trees with stone axes was decreased. In the past, the ancestors of the Cheyenne people who live today lived in earth lodges, which were constructions made of wood and covered with soil. These people used to reside in the region surrounding the Great Lakes and made their living through agriculture and fishing. Those circumstances shifted when Sweet Medicine, a prophet, had a vision that persuaded them to start living as nomads. The Cheyenne were forced to live in teepees, cone-shaped houses fashioned from animal hide and held up with long wooden poles. This was because the wars with the Lakota and other groups pushed them out of their homes. Several gods are acknowledged by the Cheyenne religion. The Wise One above and a god who resides on earth are often considered to be the two most significant ones. There are 4 spirits at each of the 4 points on the compass. As we mentioned earlier, one of the most critical aspects of the Cheyenne ceremony was the Sundance. To do this, one had to get into a trance by dancing while staring into the sun. Because of this, the dancer's power was heightened, and it also ensured that the universe would be renewed. The renewal of the sacred arrows was yet another ceremony performed in the cosmogonic system. Around the time of the summer solstice, the ceremony is carried out annually over 4 days. Only males are permitted to take part in the ceremony, and females are required to remain confined within their teepees throughout the 4-day ritual. The sacred arrows that are used to strengthen the men of the tribe are the main point of the ceremony where they are shown. The peyote cult, sometimes known as the Native American Church, has emerged as an integral component of the religious practices of the Cheyenne people in more recent times. Furthermore, the Cheyenne world was a dynamic, operational system that consisted of components that were interconnected with one another. The planet was subdivided into 7 major levels inside the Cheyenne universe, which was created by Hestonov. Spirit beings, also known as Mayun, are found in this universe, and the degree to which they are revered is proportional to their connection to Maheoho, the one who is responsible for the creation of all forms of life, both physical and spiritual, in Hestonov. Maheuno, a personal spirit that resides in each of the cardinal directions, is the entity that connects these levels. The manifestations of these spirit beings include a wide variety of animals, birds, plants. Aspects of these spirit beings, or the spirit beings themselves, are symbolically intertwined with the shapes of plants and animals depicted in Cheyenne ceremonies. This is accomplished through Cheyenne's religious expression. There are a lot of Cheyenne people who believe that the current ecological disaster around the globe is the end of Hestonov. Meanwhile, there has been a continual presence of Christian missionary efforts among the Cheyenne people for the past century, particularly among the Mennonites and Catholics living among them. Sacred arrows, mahouts, and the medicine hat, isiwun, continue to be the most revered holy items, even though there are many different religious beliefs and expressions in the modern world, including Christianity and the American Indian Church. In the same way that diseases may have a natural or spiritual cause, Cheyenne believed that death could also have a cause. Death, as a cultural phenomenon, was a process that involved being spiritual. Maheo'o bestowed upon the infant the gift of breath power, omotome, and the spiritual potential, matasuma, at the moment of birth. These 2 gifts are acquired throughout one's life. When a person gets older, the process goes in the opposite direction. With the departure of matasuma from the body, changes in behavior and cognition occur. Next, omotomi departs, bringing on death. After that, the spirit of the person who has passed away makes its way to Sayana, the camp of the dead, by ascending the lengthy fork of the Milky Way. The Suicide Road, also known as the Short Fork of the Milky Way, is the path that the deceased person would take if they were an outcast, if they died in a terrible accident or by suicide, or if they were an unredeemed sinner. Some would come back to earth as villainous spirits. Finally, a significant number of Cheyenne people continue to be concerned about living a good life and, consequently, having a good death. The meat of buffalo and deer was a favorite food of the Cheyenne Indians. That said, they are also aware of the potential risks to their health that come with consuming excessive meat, which is why they have integrated vegetables into their diet. During their diets, they primarily ingest corn and squash. Fish, fruits, and berries were among the goods the Cheyenne people sold to other Indian tribes. Cheyenne society was a trading society. The women added various spices and seasonings to the food they were cooking. Therefore, it is essential to be aware of the fact that the Cheyenne Indians were originally a farming tribe. This is the reason why they place a greater emphasis on agriculture and farming. It was because of this that they were able to consistently provide their family with food to eat. On the other hand, the Sioux Indians took them without their will and relocated them to the North Dakota region. Because of this, they decided to abandon their agricultural way of life and adopt a hunter-gatherer way of life, which was more difficult and demanding emotionally. The men were responsible for hunting buffalo for hundreds of years, while the women were responsible for harvesting the crops. One of the factors that demonstrate that the Cheyenne civilization is a balanced society is that both men and women have their tasks regarding providing food for the Cheyenne Native American people. The Spanish arrived in the Americas at the beginning of the 17th century, bringing their horses. After the turn of the century, a great number of wild horses roamed the mainland of the United States of America. These animals were tamed by the Cheyenne Indians, who eventually discovered how to use them. As a result, they became nomadic hunters rather than people who worked the land. On the other hand, before the 16th century, the Cheyenne Native American diet was primarily composed of fruits and vegetables. During buffalo hunting activities, the men and women occasionally assisted each other. Most of the time, however, it is the women who are the ones who prepare the food. Because the Cheyennes relied on buffalo as their sole and primary means of subsistence, the buffalo's population finally dwindled over many years. And so they began supplementing their diet with fish, deer, fruit, and berries. Since they were not particular about the foods that they consumed, these Indians were, in fact, a highly versatile tribe. Regarding the Cheyenne food intake, they are open to consuming everything, including anything they have hunted, gathered, or even grown themselves. One of the most significant aspects that contribute to the Native Americans, and the Cheyenne Indians in particular, being an intriguing tribe to comprehend, is that they make use of and obtain everything they can from the animals they have hunted. The material would be utilized for various purposes, including food, clothes, housing, and even ornaments and decorations. The buffalo's skin, along with any other animal's skin, is utilized in the production of garments and roofing for their dwellings. The bones of the animals are used in the production of both tools and weapons. When it comes to the limited instances in which these animal bones are utilized, hoes and arrows are two examples. The Cheyenne Indians would not only use the animals they hunted and killed for food, but also various other purposes within their culture. They took measures to ensure that nothing was thrown out. Because these buffaloes are more than simply creatures in their eyes, they firmly believe that they should use all that comes from the buffalo. The fact that these creatures are a part of nature is a huge plus, since it is something that they ought to respect and appropriately make use of. This ends our video on yet another exciting episode of our series, The Native Journals. If you enjoyed this video and want to be alerted to other videos like this when we post them, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and push the notification bell on your screen. Thank you.